Cindy, can we get a roll call, please?
Laura,
Here.
DePalma,
Here.
Marshall,
Here.
England,
Here.
Unruh,
Present.
Rumble.
Here. All right, and we're looking for a motion to approve the agenda. I don't believe there's any additions.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Dana.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, that brings us right into our presentation, so Ken?
That was quick.
Yeah.
Well, it's that time of year again where you get to see your friendly auditor, talk to you guys about your books. As always, we want to say we appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve as Brandon Township's auditors. As usual, the audit went very smooth. Melissa does a great job. We asked a lot of questions. The officials were very helpful in getting us all the information that we needed. And everything came out quite well. The year was a very good year for the township. As far as 2024 goes, financially, the township did very well. I'd just like to hit a few of the numbers to highlight that to the board. And I did meet with most of the board members previously to go into the reports in more detail. So tonight we'll just kind of summarize a few things. If you would flip your financial statements over to page 23. And this is a recap. I think it's a good page to look at to summarize the operations for the township for the year. And on page 23, you can see all of your governmental funds, starting with your general fund. And if you look there at the, starting at the top, your total revenues were just under $3.1 million. That includes all of your taxes and your state shared revenues. Operating expenditures were just over $3 million. So you can see you had an operating surplus of just over $97,000. Now this year was a little bit different because you took the rest of your ARPA monies that you had in your designated general fund and moved them over to your general fund. And that was a transfer that you can see there for just under $1.5 million. And you transferred $40,000 out of your general fund and into the cemetery fund. So when it's all said and done, the general fund increased its overall fund balance by $1,548,844. So it finished the year with an ending fund balance of just under $6.4 million. So you've got these the general fund operating with the designated general fund combined now, and that ARPA money is earmarked in the general fund. Okay, and that's to replace lost revenues that you lost during the COVID years. And then you can see your police fund, over $2.8 million in revenues. Expenditures were $2.5 million, so you had a surplus there of over $300,000. And then in the rest of your funds, your surplus was just over $22,000. So the good thing is when you add up all of these surpluses that you had for the year, the overall township increased its fund balance by $1.8 million. Everybody see where I'm at? And then the furthest column over to the right is your fire department. And overall, your fire department had a surplus of $407,750. So it was a good year for the township. You were able to sock away a lot of money, get ready for more costs coming at you. Now let's talk a little bit about the downside, and that's your legacy costs. You have your pension and your OPEB. So I just wanted to make sure the board could see where they stand there. I'm going to flip over to, in your footnotes, and if you would flip over to page 40. So looking at the top part of the page, you can see based on your actuarial report, your net pension liability was at $2,748,251 at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, it went to $2,782,036. So when you look at that, your overall net liability increased by just under $34,000. Okay, and you can see all the detail that makes up that change. Your service costs, the actual contributions, the net investment income, and so on. So that kind of gives you an idea of just 1 year's activity there with the pension. And depending how the market does this year, after all the roller coasting is done, it'll be interesting to see where you end up. Is there any discussion that the board would like to have on this? I know it's usually a pretty lively topic. Your other legacy cost is your OPEB cost, your other post-employment benefits, basically health insurance. And you can see there at the beginning of 22, you had a net liability of $597,772. And at the end of 23, it was reduced to $250,941. So you were able to eat into this net liability.
They weren't on the right page.
Oh, I'm sorry, page 44.
Yeah, 44.
So it was good news on it as far as the OPEB side goes. Now this report is typically 1 year behind because of how the actuaries get this report done. But it still gives you a sense of where the township stands. Any questions on that? Let's see, the next page, I'd like to just go over your budget to actual with your general fund. And that's listed on page 59. So starting at the top there, you can see total revenues. The township had budgeted for just over $3,001,000, and it ended up spending it ended up bringing in $3,099,575. So you can see you had a positive variance there for the year of $98,383. In other words, you brought in that much more money than what you had budgeted in your general fund. Expenditures, it was the same thing. It was a positive variance, a favorable, if you will. You had budgeted to spend $3,615,043, and the township spent $3,002,444. So you have a positive variance there of $612,599. And there were only two activities where you went over your budget by just a little, and that was in your building inspection and in your township park operations. But very, very minimal. It's way below the threshold where the state gets upset. Everything looks good there. Your other major fund was your police fund. And same thing, that's on page 60, the next page. Overall, you had a positive, favorable variance when we compare your budgeted revenues to your actual revenues of almost $56,000. And then your expenditures, a positive variance there of just over $110,000. So when you add those together, your overall fund balance was $166,000 higher than what you had estimated it would be when you put the budgets together. Any questions, comments on those two reports? You guys are being pretty nice to me tonight. Okay, the only other thing I wanted to show you in the financial statements is our fire department, and that's listed on page 77. As you know, internally you have 4 fire funds set up. You've got your fire operating, equipment and housing, your ambulance fund, and then your contributions fund. So you can see in total, all 4 funds brought in just over $3.9 million, which includes your taxes and also your service income. Most of that being the runs, your ambulance runs. And then as far as expenditures go, you spent $3,552,290. So you can see you had an operating surplus of $394,549. We brought in just over $13,000 for a sale of a vehicle, bringing your total surplus in the fire department to just under $408,000. So the chief finished the year with just under $3 million in his overall fund balance. So as an outsider looking in, we were very happy to see how the township did financially. You've got a good pot of monies there set aside for those bigger expenditures coming down the road. Any discussion or questions or anything?
Yeah, I have
Yes, sir, Mr. Scott.
thanks for coming in and going through this. Where do you see our, in the next 3 years, where do you see any vulnerabilities in for other townships or ourselves?
You know,
Or you-
the
what do you-
biggest concern is always those legacy costs, like we had talked about, Scott, you know, especially your pension, and making sure that you keep up with that. That's where we see a lot of municipalities make the mistake of going a year or two without contributing, thinking they'll be okay, and before you know it, you know, you get so far behind, it's hard to get caught back up again. So if it's something that the township really feels that it's a priority to take care of, you know, I just urge the board to make sure you keep an eye on that.
The ending of ARPA funds, does that, I think we've accommodated for that pretty well, but is that affecting other townships?
No, I think most municipalities knew it was a once-in-a-lifetime type thing they were going to get. You know, if, God forbid, we ever go through that phase again where we have a thing like COVID, I don't think there's the monies out there to do what they did last time, you know, at the federal level or the state level. And I think that's kind of the opinion that I'm hearing from, you know, the higher ups. So,
But,
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you bet.
perfect. All right, Ken, thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, if the board would be so kind to just make a motion to accept the report, and then we can get it on to the state of Michigan.
That's the first item on new business.
Okay, great.
Yep. All right, so that brings us into our reports. We have the treasury report, our general ledger report, the designated report. There is a building report, and then recreation report. John, do you want to add anything? Okay. And then we have the Edna Burton Senior Center report. Okay.
Sorry.
You're good.
I'm a little gabby tonight, so. So about 3 weeks to a month ago, I got a phone call from a lady at OPC, which is the Older Persons Center in Rochester, and Area Agency on Aging, which is now called Ageways, which governs our area, had some extra money. So they wanted to know what we wanted. And I'm like, I don't know. So we, not that we really needed it, but sometimes we do for commodities. We're getting like a regular size refrigerator and we're putting it back in where our commodity food is kept, because that has to be locked up at all times. So we thought, well, we'll put it back there. We were just going to put the small one in the kitchen, but it's not a feasible idea to move the big one back into the other room. So, and then they asked what else I wanted. And I'm like, oh, she said, well, what about outside patio table and chairs? And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, you know, relatively inexpensive. And then they went ahead and paid the extra $450. So when they get delivered, the people that deliver them will also assemble them. You don't have to do it, David. So that's, you know, the tables and the two set tables and 8 chairs was $4,000. So I think it's the composite. So
That's great.
we're going to put them out there in the front, unlike on the Ball Street front part of the building. And then at Racking and Raking, well, actually a couple months ago, I had a gentleman call me, and he works for AT&T, and they wanted to adopt our senior center and do something for us. So I needed to think of what I wanted. And I'm thinking, okay. Well, once the village took down our senior center sign at the corner of Cedar and Oakwood, we had no, I mean, and they put a sign up there, but it's not as bold and noticeable as what ours was. So then I got to thinking about it, and so I called the village to find out, like the sign that's on the Sherman Ball Court. Well, I said, well, I think it would need to be a little smaller than that, because they paid $10,000 for it. I said, I don't think I'm getting $10,000 from AT&T. Well, he came with his wife on Rocking and Raking Day, and he came back later. He took our sign, he took our posts, he just bought a bunch of woodworking stuff. He is going to make us another sign, pretty much duplicate to that one. So now we're just deciding where facing Ball Street we want it, because Ball Street has no visual that that's the senior center. Facing Cedar Street, we have a big one that we put our activities on, but it's really, we have a lot of people that say, well, where is the senior center? We don't see any signs. So quite a bit of donations in the past 2-3 weeks. So our refrigerator comes Wednesday, and I'm not sure when the tables and chairs come, but
That's great.
Nice.
yeah. So that's it.
Thank you, Faith.
Yep.
All right, that brings us to trustee reports. Scott?
Nothing, I did, Bob and I attended the sewer update meeting, and the pursuit for funding is ongoing.
All right, thank you. Steve?
Nothing, sir.
Bob?
Nothing.
Tony?
Met with Ken the auditor for the first time, nice gentleman, and had a lot of nice things to say about Melissa and the bookkeeping she's done. So.
Yep.
It's always nice to hear.
Thank you, Tony. Treasurer?
So let's see, I'm still waiting on Oakland County for them to clear my settlement so I can make the final payment out of the tax collection. Dog licenses, we will keep taking in and distributing dog license if you come in to pay for one, but as of June 1st they go, or as of June 2nd, they go delinquent. So you have about a month to pay without having to pay a late fee. I attended the DDA Euchre tournament on Saturday night. It was a great time raising funds for the farmers market. Lots of great raffle baskets there. Thank you to everyone who put it on and for all the people who donated to it. I also attended an Oakland County Treasurers Association event and learned about AI, and then also on economic outlook. In your packets, usually there's just a one-page treasurer's report for me that shows like each month, January, February, March, and shows each bank account with the beginning balance from the month before, deposits, interest, less withdrawals, and the ending balance. The clerk's office in my office has been working on now providing bank reconciliation amounts. So there's new sheets in there, and there's one for January, February, March. We got caught up this quarter, caught up through the first quarter. Every month now, packet will just be the 1 month. That shows my bank balance per my bank recs, and then the clerk's office is the treasurer's bank recs, and then the clerk's office bank recs, and then what our differences are between outstanding deposits and checks. And, so we're getting back to reconciling these accounts like we used to do a while ago, and so we know that we are in reconciliation. And our office opened up the new bank account for the electronic funds payments for ACH, like we talked about back at the beginning of the year when you guys when we voted on the investment policy for the banking to open up new accounts. So this month is going to be the first month that the clerk's office makes the payments, issues the warrants, so I can go into and make the payment for electronic fund payments. And that's it.
All right, thank you. No clerk's report tonight, so supervisor's report. This year's West Nile virus mosquito products are now available in the supervisor's office. You can get 2 products per residence of Brandon Township, and that's while supplies last. And our township cleanup day this year, the first one is June 14th out at the Township Park, and you can now call the supervisor's office at 248-627-4918 to make an appointment. The next no-haz date for the township is participating in this year is June 7th at the Oxford Middle School, and you can make appointments for that at nohaz.com. And then we did receive our most recent statutory revenue check in the amount of $257,985. So that is it for me. That brings us into correspondence. We have Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 11th, 2025. Zoning Board of Appeals meeting minutes, March 26th of 2025. And then that brings us into citizens' comments. Remember, your comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and this first round of comments is only on agenda items. Is there anybody that has any comments on agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. No discussion tonight. That brings us to the consent agenda. We have regular meeting minutes of April 7th, 2025. Regular bills in the amount of $14,773.37. And prepays in the amount of $450,801.22. So looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions? Cindy, roll call, please.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes. Motion carries. No unfinished business, so that brings us right into our new business. The first one you have, as Ken mentioned, Ken has performed the audit and presented it to the board members and to the board tonight. And we are looking for a motion to accept the 2024 audit report as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dana. Any additional questions? Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you again, Ken. Oh, he's already gone.
I
I did not see him sneak out. All right, that brings us to our new hire. We are looking to hire a laborer in addition to the facilities manager that we started it back in February. We've come to realize that he's definitely gonna need some more help, so we're looking to hire our number 2 candidate for when we originally interviewed for the facility manager. So we have 3 motions here. The first one is to create the position, because we don't have that position, in accordance with the job description and adjust the 2025 wage scale as presented. Motion 2 is to hire Kevin as the full-time laborer, starting at $23.49, beginning May 6, 2025. And then the third motion is to move the money in from the carry forward to cover the wages. So is there questions on any of this? Okay, would anybody like to make the motions?
I'll make a motion to create a laborer position in accordance with the attached job description, adjust the 2025 wage scale as presented.
Support.
All right, I got Dana on that one. All right, can we get a roll call on motion 1, please?
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes. Motion carries. Somebody like to make motion 2?
I'll make a motion to hire Kevin Albert as full-time laborer at their clerical staff / laborer starting rate of $23.49 per hour, beginning May 6, 2025.
Thank you, Steve.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. Roll call, please.
Stengman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes. Motion carries. And then motion 3?
I'll make a motion to move $40,000 from 101-000-699.101 appropriation from general fund carry forward to 101-265-702.000 wages to cover said wages.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. Roll call, please.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengman,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Throwing
Yes.
things at me.
Motion carries. Welcome, Kevin.
Congratulations.
All right, that brings us to the township computer upgrade, and Chief is our impromptu IT specialist, is gonna handle these 2.
Okay, so if you want to look at the contracts and all the work that we did, it's right here. You're more than welcome to have, but I thought I'd save some trees, so. The first thing we're going to talk about is the IT services provider. So currently we have VC3. VC3 started out as IT Right. When IT Right was here, we were happy with the service. It was definitely done on a timely basis, and the charge for that was reasonable. They merged with VC3. VC3 is a bigger company. They're nationwide. as when larger companies take over smaller ones, that personal assistance connection that you had with the individuals is no longer there. And it was pretty obvious when we were calling in waiting days to get things resolved, which is not real effective when you're trying to get stuff done in a township. So with that, we had VC3 also increase their prices. So we started looking around. We looked at 3 other companies. When I say we, it was Supervisor Rumble and myself. We looked at Red Level 1. We looked at AI Connected. Red Level 1's out of Novi, AI Connected's in Waterford, and then we looked at High Tech. High Tech is in Casco, which is out near 53 and towards Port Huron area. Ultimately, they all will provide the same level of service that we're looking for. They will provide it in different manners. Some use different programs for anti-spam, some use different programs for antivirus, and then cybersecurity software programs as well. Ultimately, we felt comfortable with High Tech, both in their cost and in the services that they'll provide. And we'll talk a little bit more on some of their things that they're going to provide on the next motion or on the next agenda topic. But this would be for a 2-year contract with them. It will be an estimated $22,056. That number will change depending on if we add more computers, if we add more different software, if we do anything like that. There'll be an additional incurred cost. So, if you have any questions, I can try and answer them as best as I can. I can bore you with the details if you would like.
So will the money come out of that public contributions fund?
Well played.
Am I wrong? What happened here?
Yeah, you're wrong. Actually, it's going to come out this other one.
And guys, just so you know too, this number, it is broken up between the fire department and the township. It's not all the township, it's not all the, it depends on how many, I think you have, what, 6 or 7 computers?
Yeah, we have 6 or 7. You guys have like 21 or somewhere
So it
around
is
that,
broken
16 to
up
21.
Between the 2 departments.
So it will get separated once they get in. They look at everything, get it all turned over to them, and then we'll separate all those numbers out, and we'll get a nice breakdown for Melissa. So with that, I have 2 motions. The first motion is to enter into that contract, and then the second motion is to move some money around for the fire department. I just want to make note that I have a typo in the motion number 2, and the account number should be 205, not 250. I'm not dyslexic, but evidently I was that day.
I do have a question, because I recall when I first took office that there was talk about our server being, have they looked into the server costs?
Yeah, we know that the server's going to have to be replaced. No company would include that in the service agreement, so that'll be a separate agreement. So you'll be seeing us come to you for different things. One will be the township server.
Did we kind of look at what the different places were going to charge for that too? When
We
took
did.
into account?
Yeah, and they were all within, as far as, they're all going to charge an hourly rate, and they're all within $20, $30 of each other.
Okay,
So.
that's what I was just trying to determine that. I talked to High Tech when we were up over at the conference. They were at the conference.
Over in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, in Grand
Yep.
Rapids. I talked to them. They seem like a great company. And
Yeah, we've been, I was very impressed with them. I was very impressed with High Tech and AI Connected. The only thing that, when we talked about it, was it really comes down to price. It was really hard to justify another, $17,000.
right.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Very good. Approval of the $23,000 for replacement computers with spares.
Oh, that's the wrong one. He did them out of order.
That was the first one in our packet.
I know.
Oh,
He's doing the.
I did the
doing the IT
service
contract.
contract first.
And I don't know what the heck I'm
It's
talking
the
about.
next
Underneath
page.
the page. They're not out of order.
Chief went out of order.
You did that to me on purpose. You know why? Because the whole contribution,
It's this one.
get me ready.
Did you hear that one?
Flip it over.
There you
See?
go.
There you go.
Can we edit this?
Mess with me. See how it works out for you.
Mouthy, that's what happens, karma. All right.
Get for throwing papers at me.
First take, make a motion to approve the township supervisor to enter into 2-year contract with High Tech to provide managed IT services to Brandon Township and the fire department for an estimated cost of $22,056 annually.
Thank you, Steve.
Support.
Thank you, Bob. Any additional questions on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Candelora,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengland,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. And then motion 2 is where the 205 needs to be corrected, if you're gonna make that motion, Steve.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to move $8,000 from 205-000-699.000 appropriation from ENH carry forward to 205-363-728.000 to cover the fire department portion of the service contract.
Support.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dana. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengland,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candelora,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
now the computers.
Stacy Lawrence will be so much happier, I guarantee you. And that'll make everybody else happier too. I mean that in a really nice way, Stacy, you're not here tonight. Okay, so before I dig my hole any deeper, the next is while.
I can't go deeper than me.
Yeah. So the next thing was, while we were doing all this, we knew last year that Windows 10 was coming to an end, and we are going to have to upgrade to Windows 11. So we did an audit of our computer equipment that we have. Of the computers that we have, approximately 28 of them ish need to be replaced. That we cannot upgrade them. We actually have to replace them. There's not enough memory, and the processor, the internal processor in them, was too small. So High Tech said, all right, we'll make you a deal. You buy the new computers, we'll install them at no additional charge. That's about 80 hours, 50 to 80 hours of work, depending on how long it's going to take them, at $170 an hour. Do the math, and it's about $18,000. So that right off the bat was a huge savings. I will say AI Connected had said the same thing. So we had two companies that, really, really, really wanted our business. With that, we will, out of the 19 and 9, 19 for the township, 9 for the fire department, replacement computers, and that'll give us a couple of spares. Because the other thing that they did, High Tech did, is they're selling us a computer that I cannot even buy at Dell for that price, and we get the state and local government pricing from Dell, and usually they're the cheapest. Nobody can beat them. Again, how bad they really want our business. So with all of that, we have two motions. The first motion is for the total dollar amount of up to $23,000 with 19 for the township, 9 for the fire department. And then motion 2, again, the 250 needs to be 205.
Okay, I'll make the motion, approval up to $23,000 for replacement computers spares. 19 replacements for Brandon Township from line item 101-261-977.000 equipment, and 9 replacements for Brandon Fire and line item 205-363-977.000. That was deja vu.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. Any additional comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Marshall,
Yes.
Stengland,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candelora,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. Somebody like to make a motion too?
Sure, I'll keep
Steve.
going. Let's keep it rolling. All right.
You're on a roll now.
Yeah, to move $5,500 from 205-000-699.000 appropriation from ENH carry forward to 205-363-977.000 to cover the cost of the computers for the fire department.
Support.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you,
done?
Dana.
Well, I was making sure that we helped you.
All right, any additional comments? Roll call, please.
Wanger,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candelora,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes.
Awesome.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Awesome. I know the township and the fire department, we both appreciate it very much.
Thanks for your work.
All right, so that brings us to the law enforcement contract. We did pass the 25-27 contract back in January, but I was asked to look into the cost of potentially having our own department. I've done that, and Dana has helped me with the math, since she's the math, and figured all those numbers out, but ultimately, by using Oakland County Sheriff's Office, it saves us about $60,000 per officer on average. And then I also discussed potentially having our own department with our township attorney and MMRMA, who is our insurance company. And both of those really advise against having your own department, primarily due to the significant liability and the startup costs and the training costs, and having all that extra responsibility and liability on us personally versus Oakland County Sheriff's Office taking that burden off of us. So my recommendation is for the board to maintain our relationship with Oakland County Sheriff. And then, however, Lieutenant Glover and I have talked at length about the Waymaster position, and we do agree that that's not working out as we thought it could or should. So the recommendation is to drop that position. And by doing that, that saves the township $566,350 over the term of the 25-27 contract. So you have two motions here to accomplish what I've just discussed with you. Is there any questions on that stuff?
So the analysis of the police services, you just did it by their budget
We did it by budget for everybody.
and population, not by, because I find it very hard to compare many of these police departments with each other because of their size, and I know the activity.
Well,
Like
if you look,
Southfield is huge, and they're very, very active.
yeah, if
very
you look on the right, it's by the officer, though.
I
Dana
hear
broke
you.
it out.
But there, you're looking at also activity of what that officer is really performing per day.
Yeah,
Because you gotta look at like, how many arrests they have, I mean, you hear the performance of the lieutenant come in, how many just basic things off the top of my head. How many calls, how many runs they're actually taking, arrests, tickets, traffic stops, that's just like your basics, right off the top, and besides the other, things that a lot of times you'll get a performance report, annual review. That would be interesting to see if we're making the right decision, to see what performance was, if that's where we're making how much it's gonna cost. Because some of these other smaller departments, like Holly, or that has about the same amount of runs, or even Franklin, are not included in here. And some of these other bigger departments, not comparable. And Ferndale is really busy, I know.
well, these are the only ones that I could find in Oakland County that had their own department, so if those two aren't on there, I didn't know they had their own department.
Yeah, Holly, Franklin has them. They're about,
Well, Holly's
they're
just a-
comparable with our
Holly
budget.
Village has one,
That's correct.
which is 1 square mile.
I understand that, but you also look at the performance, what they're doing, and I'm just saying, and their budget. Regardless, it would just be nice, a better comparator, because you have Huntington Woods, you have Pleasant Ridge. I know they're smaller, but we'll look at their budget, and what they're doing. I guess that's the overall thing. I'm not saying, I just need more insight into this.
Well, the only one of those three that's even in Oakland County is Holly. The other two aren't.
Pleasant Ridge is in there, Huntington Woods is in there.
Huntington Woods is in
That's
Oakland
that guy right
County?
there.
Franklin
Oh, I
is
didn't know that was
too.
Oakland County, sorry.
Oak Park would be
Franklin's
one.
Oakland County.
Um,
But do all of them have their own police department?
yes, I mentioned every single one of them have their very own. Just that some of these are just like Troy, I'm gonna go back, Troy and Royal Oak are super, and Southfield, super.
Well, that's why I made
Southfield
them-
has their own jail.
Well,
That's
why
how busy they are.
I made them smaller because I knew you couldn't compare, so, I mean, all I took was what we got for the budgets. If you want to get more, we can easily throw it into the spreadsheet and see what it does.
Well, I would like to know their performance, not just the population. Like, what is each police officer doing per day, or on the average, or something?
But the performance doesn't have anything to do with our budget,
It's the
so.
amount of square
I hear
footage
you,
and the
but what
amount of
you're paying for.
population. Well, and that's why we then took it by population, cost per position. Instead of just comparing budget to budget, we took it by the number of positions, so that you could break it down and cost per position.
Because the
and then tell where
positions,
we're at.
I'll guarantee you, like, if you want position, a lieutenant costs a lot more than a regular patrol. And, or a captain, and some of these bigger departments are gonna have multiple captains, or even what's the other, what's under a chief, like the deputy chief, or, some of those other ones that will bloat their salary. Like, Southfield, I don't know how many they have, but I know it's more than one, because there's chief, and they have like 3 different bureaus, I think. Like because they allow them have their own dope teams, and that'd be like a different bureau in its own.
Well, wouldn't Milford kind of be close to us?
Mm-hmm.
And
Milford is Milford and White Lake would be the closest, but
So,
White Lake's way bigger too,
if you
though.
look at Milford, they're at, when you take them down, they're at 3.5 for 14 positions, and at 14, we were at 2.5 our cost.
Right.
If you take them down to the 13.75, which is what we're averaging this year, if we pass taking away the Waymaster when they want to take it away, I mean, they're at still 3.5, and we're going to be going down to 3.0. Well, we're at 2.5 this year because it was actual. I was able to get the 24 actual from Ken's report, and then what I did was I took our budget for 25 and put that in there because we've already passed our budget, and then I projected what 26 and 27's budget could be. 26 is actually going to drop because we don't have the Waymaster the whole year. We don't have it at all, and this year we only have it for 3/4 of the year, so the Waymaster goes away. In 26, our budget can go down, actually, and then in 27, so like Oakland County's increase was gonna be 37% over the 3 years. With what we're doing of dropping the Waymaster,
Takes it down to 23.
it takes us down to 23% of an increase over the 3 years. So we got it down 14%, which I think is really good for the township. And when I compared us to, I was looking at Milford, I mean, yes, everything was provided here, but I was looking at Milford, basically when I was comparing us. And we were down from them. And you gotta look at, I'm just using their current year of 25.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have an increase in 26. They're gonna have an increase in
Everybody is, I
27.
understand that.
So if we're already lower than them on what we're projecting our 27 and 26 increase is gonna be, we're for sure gonna even be more lower than them.
Because we already know
We're
ours
already
are.
lower than them now. What I was kinda trying to show here.
So from looking into this, I don't see how it can be cheaper. And I know you had mentioned, Steve, you mentioned maybe working with other communities. I've talked to all the neighboring communities and none of them are interested in doing that. Nobody
Sure.
wants to share. And we did do that in the past with Independence and it did not work out with just one officer and it was a nightmare.
And that was at night. We did a shared officer at night.
And then all we heard about is he's never here. So, I don't know.
So Groveland wasn't interested?
No.
Really? 'Cause I
Not
talked
once
to,
the cost went up as high as they did with
Oh.
the county. They were interested prior to.
yeah, because
the
I remember
increases.
talking to the
Yeah.
supervisor.
Yep, I did too.
So as you know, my concern isn't just to get rid of the sheriff's department or start our own, but like with this huge increase that as we know with the county. And I'm getting frustrated dealing with the contract with the county. We don't have any say in anything. And that's very frustrating. It's not even, we're not even negotiating even with the sheriff department on anything.
No
We're
one's
getting
even-
told things, and that's where I am getting very frustrated with how, we're just getting handed down whatever. That's where this all originates from.
Sure.
And then when you look at,
The sheriff's department's getting told that too, though. It's not them.
oh,
doing it.
I'm not, that's
In
what I'm
fairness,
saying.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And like, and then the way they have the 911, so I contacted the person in charge of 911, and the way the county has a 911 set up, they have it all to the county's benefit. Where if you look at other counties, it gets filtered down appropriately to the ones that are dispatching.
Yep.
And that's another problem.
So with dispatch, I will let you know, White Lake is very close to having their own, and that might be something we can pull out of our contract
And
to
we
make
could,
it even cheaper.
we don't even have to have, and I'm not saying to White Lake. I'm
Yeah.
saying you could even do like Swartz Creek. You could even do somewhere out here where it's cheaper and they're still dispatching. That's my understanding, but I'm not, mine's all like
Yeah.
high level.
Yep.
I mean, on a conversation over the phone.
Well, I think right now.
But it's something that needs to be, I would like to discuss this more. Not
Well-
saying we're just eliminating it, but like some other things that we could save money and get out from underneath a little bit of that.
Well, and I feel like that was part of why the Waymaster we looked into and we went down to 24%.
That
I
was a
guess I
good-
feel like we've already agreed to the contract for 3 years. We're amending the contract and dropping it to help with that increase.
I hear you.
I mean,
I
I
don't
could
think
look
you can
into
get-
the dispatch separately from this,
We-
but this,
Yeah, we could look into that. And then, I mean, if you want to keep looking into stuff and look up those 5, I don't mind running any numbers you give me. I'll run numbers all day long.
Sure, I know.
If you want to run them, you can run them too.
Well,
I'm
it's-
just offering, I mean, I'll run numbers all day long. If you give them to me, you just,
there's
I
been
just
a
feel
lot
like
of time
we've
put
already
into this
passed
already
this,
too.
So,
A lot of time.
It's
We've
gonna be a
already
lot of
passed
money.
it.
It's gonna be a lot of money that's gonna be increased, my understanding that when they jump it up 37%, that's worth
well,
doing.
it was already,
Well,
they were
that's why
already
we're
doing
backing
it,
it
this
down.
contract. They already had jumped it 37% in this
And
contract.
we already
we've
agreed to
already-
that.
And we agreed to it, now we're going back down. But if you want to look at, because in 3 years our contract is up, give me more numbers and,
Sure.
but we can also then, Jason can look into the
Dispatch.
the dispatch, because I know that's been talked about. Would that just be dispatch for police or police and fire then?
I don't, fire can't come off of Oakland County.
Well, so when you say dispatch.
I'm just curious, because I want to know where chief stands on
No,
all
no,
this.
I can see his
I was
hackles up
biting,
already.
man, I tell you what, I was biting my
Sure
tongue
that
as much
we
as I
can't
can,
have
so.
Opposite dispatch either, but.
Right.
No,
that's what I
so,
wanted to find
so
out.
the sheriff's department, if we're using the sheriff's department, you're gonna use sheriff's department dispatch to dispatch police. So now, when you talk about fire, then you could have somebody else dispatch fire. Here's the problem. The PSAP is going to remain wherever the police calls are coming in. So if that means, and the PSAP is a public safety answering point. So when you call 911, who's picking up that 911 call? It's going to be wherever that police agency is. So if the police agency is Oakland County Sheriff, that's where the PSAP's going to be. So then what happens is, if we pick somebody other than the sheriff's department and we go to, I don't know, private ambulance company, because we did that at one time before the sheriff's department started dispatching for fire, police would answer it, 911, what's your emergency? Oh, fire, medical, okay, so what's your address? What kind of a medical? What kind of emergency? Where are you at? All that information. Then they send that information off to the other dispatcher, which is a totally different company. They take that information again, and then they finally dispatch it out. So I understand your frustration. I am equally frustrated, Steve. And as much as I'd like to be able to, I won't make the gesture, but I think you can read my mind. The problem is that our residents will end up paying for that in time delays from the time that the 911 call is answered to the time that it is dispatched. And when you're having a cardiac event, especially if you need CPR, time is of the essence. And an additional 3 to 4 minutes could mean the difference between life and death, quite literally.
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to make any services less. I think that the police and fire are what the residents want for their number one services.
Yeah,
from
and-
what I hear. So I don't want to look into a dispatch if that's going to be what's going to happen.
And the only comment I want to follow up with that is, I'll say this again. I understand your frustration. It's not the people doing the job. It's not the Oakland County deputies. It is not our dispatch center that is the problem. It is the Oakland County commissioners. Let's place the blame where the blame needs to be placed.
I think I mentioned that. That's
I-
why I don't
Yep.
we're not negotiating even with the sheriff. We're not even negotiating with the 911 center. We're going through the county commissioners, and it's an undue burden on the local governments that are trying to provide service for their residents. That's the issue.
The
Said
real
this
question
before.
is, where is that extra 7.5% funding going to? Where is that extra 7.5% that we paid for the dispatch contract and that we're paying for the sheriff's contract? Where is that money going to? That's the question.
Right.
You won't get a straight answer.
Nope.
Well, and then they're gonna raise, they're actually raising,
Well, yeah,
their-
they point to the 1,000-page report.
Yeah.
well, they're gonna also, I mean.
I can give you a
raising the
1,000-page
dollar per
report, too.
student, They're raising the assessing. If we had our own assessor, those prices would be going up.
Yeah,
If we
they're
use
about to
their
get a
assessor.
45% increase on assessing. Which
Yeah, whoever
luckily
doesn't
we
use
don't
their
have
own
that, but
assessor.
I
Yep.
understand.
So-
It's what
But if we
Oakland
don't,
County's
if we don't
doing is
explore
crazy.
this, right? And that's all I'm asking. Because
I've been exploring it. I
what
don't
if
know how
it,
much
what
more
if
you
it
want
is
me
the
to
right,
explore.
what if it is the right way that we're already doing it, then so what? Right, versus, just kind of doing what we did yesterday. That's
Well,
not a
yeah.
good thing to do.
I'm not happy with the increase. That's why, I mean, we ran numbers to see. That's why I was willing to do whatever needed to try to see if what we could do, where we stood.
I mean, with everything on here, we're saving $60,000 on average per officer, so I don't know how much more we could do by having our own. It's never going to be cheaper to have our own.
Well, and the other thing I think you got to think about too is that if we do have our own, it's how are you going to keep them here?
The staff.
How you gonna
Because
train
you're going to end up being a training facility, and similar to what, unfortunately, what will happen at what's happening at the fire department. We've been fortunate; we've come out with a way of how we can hire internally and keep these candidates. But when you have a law enforcement officer that's gone through the additional training, you both have been through it. You know, I'm preaching to the choir. You understand that. How do you keep them there? How do you retain that officer that has been trained and keep him from going to another department where maybe he can make another $10,000 or $20,000 a year? Because Brandon Township can't afford to be the highest paying.
Right, especially
Community.
with these people that are paying, they're gonna go to those departments.
Correct.
Obviously, they're paying more because their budget's higher.
Correct, and they've already got the training.
Well, to me, it boils down to the money that we're saving by contracting and the advice of our insurance company and our attorney all telling us not to do this. So that's why I have these motions on the table.
I bend over backwards for the fire department and police department. I'm in full support of them, and I know it's not the police department, no, it's not the sheriff's department that's doing this. It's political, to keep it clean. It's political nonsense
Yep.
down in Pontiac.
Exactly.
You're not
Doing
wrong.
this. What it reminds me of, and you'll excuse my analogy, of like prison rape. You can't get away from it. You can't get away from it. It's no escaping it, and there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to sit there and take it. We have no options. And as long as we don't allow ourselves some options, you like that analogy, huh? As long as we don't continue to explore the options, we're always gonna be taking it.
Exactly.
I hear you. That's why we did
Yeah.
explore
No,
it.
I know.
So, all right, well, I'll make motion one to maintain our current contractual relationship with Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
I'll support it.
All right, any additional comments? Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Unruh,
No.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
No.
Bangman,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. Motion two, to discontinue the Waymaster position with Oakland County Sheriff's Office effective September 30th, 25, and allow the supervisor and clerk to sign the appropriate contract amendment for this change to our 2025 through 2027 contract.
Support.
Thank you.
Were you making the motion,
I
right?
was.
Okay.
All right, any additional comments on that? Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bangman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, that brings us to our next item, which is a new hire in the clerk's office. Let me get to the right thing here. All right, so the position was posted and interviews were conducted. They interviewed 4 candidates, and Amber Gilmet was interviewed by Rosalind, the HR coordinator, and the accountant, and they are recommending the hiring of Amber to the position beginning May 27th of 25. So you have the motion in front of you, if somebody would like to make that motion.
Make the motion to hire Amber Gilmet as the full-time election/officer assistant to the clerk at the full-time starting rate of $23.49 per hour, effective May 27th, 2025, and use 101-215-702.000 wages to pay for said services.
Second.
All right, any additional comments? All right, seeing none, can we get a roll call, please?
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. All right, and that brings us to a recommendation from Ken at our auditing team, recommending that we change the capitalization of fixed assets threshold from 5,000 to 10,000 in our section 4.9 of our operations manual.
I'll make the motion to update the Brandon Township Operations Manual, section 4.9 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Roll call, please.
Marshall,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. And then we have another policy amendment. We need to add the facilities manager as an eligible township credit card holder under policy 4.15 on credit cards.
I'll make the motion to update the Brandon Township Operations Manual, section 4.15 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Dana and Tony. Any additional comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bailey,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Candeloro,
Yes.
De Palma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes, motion carries. That brings us back to citizens' comments on anything. Is there any comments? Okay, seeing none. Any additional board comments, Scott? Nope. Steve?
No, sir.
Bob? Tony?
No, thank you.
Dana?
Happy spring.
I don't have anything additional, so, all right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.